What's up? It's Chris here from Motorcycling Kiwi Style, and today we talk about the Honda XR200. But first up, if you haven't seen it, please check out my first video on the Suzuki Bandit 1200 project. But for now, let's talk about the awesome XR200R. The XR200, the world's most loved dirt bike ever. They were everywhere in the 80s and the 90s. You learned to ride on one, you used it as your daily commuter. It was your weekend trail bike to go out with your mates. You raced it in motocross against far faster two-strokes. You completed enduros on it. You mustered sheep with it. You rode through snow, mud, rivers, over hills and paddocks and gravel. You went everywhere, and you know what? The mighty XR200 never let you down. It started, it idled, and sipped fuel. Honda had created a winning formula. What they did is that they created fun. What is an XR200, or precisely an XR200R? There are many websites out there that will give you precise details about each model, but I'll summarise it here. The first model came out in 1979 as the XR185, which is a more off-road version of the Honda's existing XL185S. It was instantly popular. So for Honda, 1980 increased the engine size to 200cc. Then in 1981 they revamped the XR again and ditched the twin shocks for a single shock Pro-Link rear suspension and to increase travel, thus making it the XR200R. Only slight colour changes were done from 1981 to 1983. Then in 1984 Honda decided that the XR200R needed more horsepower, so they totally redesigned the engine, in which they took the XR250 engine and made it into a 200 size. From memory it was downsizing the bore. This proved to be quite unreliable, which you can find online So after 2 years they went back to the existing 2-valve engine. This was in 1986. The XR200 remained in production until about 2002, in which it was basically downgraded to a basic fun bike with less suspension travel and no lights by the time it was discontinued. Hopefully that gives you an insight into the history. Of course, Honda made also the pioneering XR75, which is loved by lots of people and worth a lot of money these days. This was followed on by the XR80, 100, 250, 350, 400, 500, 600 and 650, all in various versions. However, this is not about these models. There have been many opinions on what is the best model XR200R was to have. As far as specs go, the 1986 to 1992 was the one to have, as a decent suspension, the reliable 2-valve engine and stronger frame. My opinion is that the 1981 to 83 models were the ones to have, as they seem to be getting more collectible, increasing in value. Plus I own an 82 XR200R, of course. Just what is it about XR200Rs that makes them so loved? Let's start with that awesome 200cc air-cooled 4-stroke 2-valve single. It's modest horsepower that is delivered steadily from idle to top revs, which I think is around 9,500. This makes the XR extremely easy to ride for first-timers or novices. No sudden whack of power, the ability to crawl along slowly without the engine subtly cutting out. If kept stop, the engine is very quiet. I can attest to this. Another bonus of the modest state of tune is the fact that the engine is very economical. Filling up the 9-litre tank can last all day. I can also attest to this. The 6-speed gearbox gives a good wide choice of gears to use depending on your riding mode. If the oil is changed regularly, the engine is pretty reliable. I point out the oil, as it is, only holds just over a litre in the crankcase. It's cheap insurance to change the oil often, just to ensure its reliability. The XR200 is easy to kickstart, no electric start but not really needed, and idles smoothly. DIY maintenance is straightforward due to the basic engine design. The ease of riding is next to talk about. Of course, I'll base my opinion from my 1982 XR200 I have. This one's quite a bit taller than the later post-91s, but it was due to the relatively long suspension travel and the 18-inch rear wheel. Once on board though, all of the controls come to hand quite easily. Light clutch pull, comfortable seat and riding position. Plastic cap easy to access the fuel tank. Brake lever and pedals well designed with a folding gear tip lever to prevent bending. I can actually say that stick with the really good Honda ones. Don't buy a cheap AliExpress knockoff gear lever. They don't last. Once underway, the rather soft suspension does a good job of keeping the lightweight XR200 in check. I think about 109 kilos dry. The drum brakes are barely adequate from standard. One thing that Honda never did with any of the other XR200s was to install a disc front brake. My theory is keeping it affordable They obviously didn't try it out in the wet because they're absolutely useless. There's a lot of neat features Honda designed as the XR. Easy adjust chain with the snell cam adjusters on the swing arm, sturdy aluminium bash plate to protect the engine, well particularly the 82s, rear grab rail to pick up the back end, which is really cool, easy to access air filter from behind left side cover, easy adjust brakes, tool bag on the rear guard, although I haven't got one yet for mine. Headlight, rather dim though for riding at night, I think only about sort of 30 watts, pretty hopeless really. So what's the XR200 like to ride? Ask anyone who's rode or ever had one in the 80s, the first thing they will say is wheelie. Yes, they're epic wheel stand bikes. Light in the front end, low gear and controllable power means hoisting that front wheel to the sky is easy. From what I remember though, you don't keep them up on the back wheel too long. The oil feed doesn't really like it. I fed around with the suspension settings and gave it some decent Metzeler knobbly tyres to enhance the riding off-road. It doesn't disappoint. Sure, it's not fast by any means, but easy to flick around, just ask for more when the throttle is pinned to the stop. Handles jumps without breaking a sweat, definitely showing its motocross heritage. Why did I buy an XR? Well, when I was young and riding junior motocross, the XR200Rs had just come out, in particular the 1982 ones with the white number boards. As a young motocross rider, I admired them as I wandered around the pits and watching them being expertly raced by top motocross riders around the tracks. Sure, my CR80R was probably as fast, but there was something about the XR200R. Many years later, after selling my DR250S back in 2017, I decided just had to find one, particularly the 82 model. I found my XR here online. It was in pretty poor condition. The engine barely ran and sounded not so good when it did. There was a lot of cam chain tap-up noise, plus it smoked like a two-stroke. The rear suspension was worn out to the point when I sat on it. The rear wheel nearly touched the guard. Paint was faded. Someone had just done a bad job of the seat, and so it was generally in a rather sorry state. It didn't faze me. I just had to rescue it. When I first bought it, I saw there was a lot of rebuilding needed. So in the end result, it was going to be my XR200. I rebuilt the engine with all new components and resprayed it black. The rear shock got rebuilt. Worked on restoring the plastics and back to a shiny red colour. Frame got a touch up here and there with red paint. All of the alloy parts, including rims and forks, got cleaned and polished. Forks themselves were also rebuilt. Basically, the XR200 got a total overhaul to bring it back from mediocrity to ready to race. All to have fun on. It was never meant to be 100% show pony restoration or museum piece, but more of a tidy up and ready to hit the dirt. Back to the legend of the XR200R. As motorcycles get more and more complicated, read my old CR450R, the maintenance gets high demands put on them and more difficult. The average person will just get to the local motorcycle shop and to maintain it, as they're just generally too complicated. The XR doesn't require this, only minimal maintenance and it'll run forever, all within the capability of the average home mechanic and rider. You know, when you go to the garage, it will start up, well, most of the time. Mentioned to most motorcycle owners in the 40 plus years age old bracket that you have an XR200R. Most of the time they will say they used to own one, or their mate had one, or the dad had one, and it was awesome. You very rarely hear a bad word said about an XR200R. It just has that cool factor about it. It knows how to put a smile on your face. It knows how to be dependable. Sure, it isn't the fastest or the best handling or the best suspended, but it is just more than the sum of parts put together. What the XR has is character. Not many Japanese dirt bikes can say that they have that. My advice, if you really want an early XR200 or 200R, get one now. Good ones becoming hard to find and prices are just escalating. Get one, you won't regret it. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed my XR200 video. Please like and subscribe, and there'll be more videos coming on. Thank you. Take care.